所以我这个开始，我先介绍。Okay, so I guess we can start. Thanks for coming today, everybody. If you haven't been here before, this is a volunteer-run space called Daybreak. It was started by Advocacy magazine, which is a publication that writes on climate politics and the social movements, added 10 years ago during the Sunflower movement. And so today we have Wei Yang, who is an important figure of that movement, and currently a researcher at the Taiwan Climate Action Network discussing the upcoming referendum on the Ma-anshan plant. So I'll let him take it away.
Okay. Hi everyone, I'm Wei Yang, as just mentioned. I wonder if you can all read the characters from there. Oh, good, because I will a lot of words in my slide. I'm not the best slide designer in the world, so bear with it. Okay, so I currently find a good spot to stand, so I won't move away. Is that good? Is that good? Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah, I work in the Taiwan Climate Action Network and for TCAN, and people ask, so you have a can for tea in it? TCAN is that a joke? I'm just telling you. So you can, okay. So there's a lot of climate action network around the world. So we are Taiwanese, so we call ourselves TCAN, and we are a platform made of like five environmental organizations. Includes the Green Citizens Action Alliance, which is I used to work for, and the Citizen of the Earth Taiwan, and the Environmental Rights Foundation. Taiwan, TPNP, Taiwan Environmental Plan, something like that. So I couldn't remember all of the name, and the Homemakers Union. So we are, it's a platform, and we used to have our own priorities, our own concerns, but then gradually we realized that we are facing this task of tackling climate crisis, and we should work kind of work as a group, work as a unit. So solidarity. So we formed this platform, and we advocate for all sorts of climate action, from the legislation of the net zero goal into our law, or just transition, or the development of renewable energy, industry transformation, things like that. Yeah, so that's what our organization does. And why are we here today talking about the referendum? I'm sure you are all aware of this event. Otherwise, you wouldn't be sitting here. Yeah. So why are we talking about nuclear? Because as I will talk about in the following speech. The anti-nuclear movement or anti-nuclear campaign is a major characteristic of Taiwan's environmental movement, and so I would say, like most of our environmental organizations in Taiwan, their stance toward nuclear is more critical than support. Yeah. So at this moment, we are also trying to fight against the referendum, and within the referendum, it's not for Taiwan's best interest in terms of climate action or environmental values. So, yeah, the topic today, this is, I just made it myself. I know there's the topic today is something like political stakes. I'm not going to talk that much about politics today. If you wish to hear more about that, you can save that for a Q&A sector. But today I will mainly talk about why is there this referendum and what do they want through this referendum, and why do we don't we agree with them. Okay, so the topic here is here comes the nuclear referendum for the third time, and in case you don't know, we have two more a couple of years ago, and people say third time makes the charm, and I hope that's not the case this year. Okay, so so now you realize why I said that the word is too crowded, you might not see well in the back. So I will just say that very briefly. Here's the current nuclear power plant in Taiwan. We have three existing, or say, three nuclear power plants that have been operated in our history. So two is in New Taipei City, you can see in the northern part of Taiwan, and one which is the one that is being put into referendum this year, the third nuclear power plant. Ma-anshan nuclear power is in the Pingdong, Kending, and the one that has never been finished is the fourth nuclear power plant, the Longmen nuclear power plant, which is in the northeast part of Taiwan, very far up. And as you can see, it's never been the construction of it has never been finished, and is currently in a hold, and maybe will be decommissioned in the near future. Okay, so why is there a policy called this is also open. It's turned off. Why is that? Okay. Why is there this? You might hear the nuclear-free homeland, and some people would often wonder whether that is the ruling party, the DPP, just abruptly say, "Oh, we are going to turn off all the nuclear power plants. So from this day on, we are going to go nuclear-free." But that's not really the case. The reason for a nuclear-free homeland is because we have a 40 years license limit for the nuclear power plant. I think which I think is kind of a general phenomenon around the world. And of course, if you want to renew. If you want to extend your license, you have to apply before, like a couple years before its a closure date. But that's not the case for the three existing nuclear power plants, which means they are not going to be extended because no application of extension has been brought up. And in that case, they will phase out. They will just close down once they reach their 40 years license period. So that's why we are. As you can see, the first reactor is was operated in 1979. So it decommissioned in 2018. Okay, so the last one in operation is the reactor number 2 in the third nuclear power plant, which was operated in 1985, and that means 2025 May is its 40 years. It reached its 40 years license limits. Okay, so just that is a very quick just a quick information about Taiwan's nuclear current status. And just another, now I will briefly talk about our anti-nuclear movement in Taiwan, which is very brief because you can see I'm not that old. I've just participated about maybe not even 10 years in the whole span, so I can just tell what I heard, from the elders. Okay, so starting in late 1980s, which probably when I was just born, the environmental NGO began to protest against specifically the planned construction of the fourth nuclear power plant, the Longmen nuclear power plant, and in general the use of nuclear power in Taiwan. And so under that civil society protest, and also because of the DPP coming to power in the year of 2000. So the fourth DPP was temporarily put into hold in 2000, but just for 10 months. And after that, the construction continued. But as you all know, that in 2011, the incident of Fukushima happened in Japan. And so after that, not just in Taiwan, but I think in worldwide, there's a renaissance of anti-nuclear campaign. So environmental NGOs formed this, what we call No-Nuclear Homeland Alliance, 贝核平台啊, it's also a platform, a symbol of all sorts of environmental NGOs. So we will have this abolish nuclear parade like every year, and at its peak, I think maybe more than how do you say that? 200,000 people participated in that parade and throughout Taiwan. And so we formed this new National Nuclear Abolition Action Platform, which I just said in Mandarin is 全国废核行动平台, and it's the main agent, main actor in Taiwan in this anti-nuclear campaign. Yeah, and in 2014, as you might know, there was the sunflower movement in protest of the trade agreement signed between Taiwan and China. But at the same time, we also have a very phenomenal anti-nuclear event, which is people occupied the Zhongxiao East Road, and was 50,000 protesters occupied the Zhongxiao East Road, and was subsequently being evicted by water cannon, and it was very brutal. I mean, the police and the crackdown was very brutal. So, but that kind of gives you a picture, an understanding of when the anti-nuclear movement was in its peak, and people were really being summoned to this value. Also, Lin Yishong, one of the very famous anti-nuclear activists, was in hunger strike during that period. It also gives the movement some momentum. And also, just under that kind of pressure, the former President Ma-anshan at that time announced that the fourth nuclear power plant will not be continuing constructing. So the construction just stopped by then, and it's never finished. Never carried out anymore. Okay. So, but the tide has changed very quickly. I mean, you can see just in 2014-13 we have this high moment of our anti-nuclear campaign, but in 2018 we have the first nuclear referendum. It's called Go Green with Nuclear, and along with a lot more referendum that year, including like stop same-sex marriage, things like that. And so also you can see if you follow Taiwan's politics news, you know that former Kaohsiung Mayor Han Kuo-yu was elected that year, so that kind of resemble a fight back of a conservative political force in Taiwan. And yeah, anyway, the Go Green with Nuclear referendum, its main purpose is to repeal the Article 95, Paragraph 1 of the Electricity Act. So to put it simply, it just wants to take out one sentence in one act, and that sentence is the nuclear energy-based power generating facility shall wholly stop running by 2025. So they want to take that phrase out, but and they did. They won their referendum. They won it by a margin of 60 to 40. So basically, it's like a landslide, and. So they claim that nuclear is reliable based on the electricity option, and nuclear is low carbon electricity, and our renewable policy is too aggressive, and it's impossible to achieve. Okay. So, but that didn't stop the 2025 nuclear phasing out. And why is that? People saying, well, you don't follow the decision of the referendum, you ignore the voice of the people. But as I told you, the key of 2025 nuclear phasing out is because its license is expired after 40 years. So simply by taking out that sentence does not automatically equals to, oh well, the existing nuclear power plant just continuing operating. This is a simple logic. But anyway, but by winning this referendum, we kind of it's you have an understanding the society now is more like it's not like before. People are more and more. Maybe the Fukushima accident is not really that. The image, the memory is not that vivid anymore. Okay, so this is probably why the tide has changed after 2018. And then just 3 years later, we have the second referendum because after realizing that winning the first one, means nothing in reusing nuclear power, they think, well, how about we targeting the fourth nuclear power plant? We wanted to continuing construction. So the title of the referendum is Construction Resumption of the Fourth Nuclear Power Plant. Do you agree that the fourth nuclear power plant should be activated for commercial operation? Which it's a little bit absurd because this kind of an issue is not. It's not something that you can decide by a referendum because whether or not a nuclear power plant can be safely operated has to go through a series of assessment and you have really it seems that experts have to go in there and check whether your facility, your equipment, your safety standard is all good. Then maybe you can go into operation. And furthermore, it's not. The construction is never finished. So you have to make sure that construction can be finished. Okay, once it's finished, then you have to pass the examination to be able to operate. So this referendum, even if it passed, it might not mean that we can use the fourth nuclear power plant. But anyway, because it didn't pass. Unlike the 2018 referendum, the 2021 referendum, I disagree. This referendum has upper hand. So it's a 42 to 47. So that's one to one now. Okay. So the third one is coming. And so this is a 2025 referendum, and the main purpose is to reactivate the third nuclear power plant. Why did we say reactivate, not the extension? Because it's tricky. Because the third nuclear power plant has already reached its license limit, so it's decommissioned right now. It stopped operating already, and so if you want to extend it, it's not the concept is slightly different. It's not extension. It's reactivate. You have to turn on something that has been turned off. So anyway, do you agree that third nuclear power plant should resume operation after passing a comprehensive safety assessment? So again, this is not a really precise topic to be voted for because just few months before this referendum being put into practice, put into a proposal, the legislative yuan passed an act together by KMT and the TPP, the Taiwan People's Party. The act says that it takes out one limits, as I have mentioned. There is to be a regulatory requirement that if you want to extend the operation of a particular nuclear power plant, you have to propose an extension proposal a few years before that, right? But they take out that requirement. So it means that you can, if your license expires tomorrow, you can propose today. Say, hey, I want extension. So basically, they can already start the process to evaluate, evaluate whether it's possible to extend the third nuclear power plant. But no, they say they want to put it into a referendum. So here we are. we are, and by the way, the previous two referendum they were proposed, and you have to like collect signature for the referendum to be successfully proposed, into a proposal. But this one has never gone through that process. So it's not initiated by NGO or people or anything like that. It's just proposed in the legislature by the political parties, and so now we have this referendum. But anyway, we scheduled to vote that August 23rd, and if that passed, then of course the government, the president or the executive yuan have to start the whole process of evaluating whether the third nuclear power plant can resume operation. Okay, but just to bear in mind, the effective period of referendum in Taiwan is 2 years. That means within these 2 years, the government is legally bound to try their best effort to carry out what is being put into vote. But after the 2 years, they are no longer legally binding to that outcome. Of course, people can accuse them of being ignoring the people's opinion, but the whole process of reactivating a nuclear power plant is longer than 2 years. So this is kind of the weird situation that we are confronting now. Okay. All right. So now let's go to the main issue today. Why do people want to reactivate the third nuclear power plant? So on the right hand side, you can see this is the slide that the TPP party, Taiwanese 民众党, let's just say 民众党. The Taiwan, I don't really want to call it Taiwanese People Party, but anyway, the Huang Kuo-chang's party, the TPP party, they go out and they talk to people, why do we want this referendum to pass? They say it's based on the national security, diversify your energy sources, and to stabilize your electricity supply for industry, and to improve your air pollution, and then to reach net zero, And on the right hand side, on the left hand side is the content from their a longer article why they support this referendum. So first one is they think that the 2025 green gas reduction target is unlikely to be achieved, and the progress of renewable energy development is behind schedule. So they think, okay, then it's time to use nuclear. Okay. So the second one is, well, during the process of our renewable energy development, they see a lot of scandals, involving solar development, and they think it's not a good sign, and also think that the tide power suffers too much loss because they purchase those renewable energies with higher price, and then they sell it to people with lower price, and that kind of it's not a smart way of doing business. So they think it's time to use nuclear. And the third one is that so under the threat of China, potential war between Taiwan and China, we should retain some certain level of nuclear power facility just to strengthen our energy supply resilience. And given all these reasons, they think they want to, after comprehensive assessment, continuing using the third nuclear power plant. Okay, sounds very reasonable. But then I'm going to just, from one to explain why we don't think it's that reasonable and why we oppose to that referendum. Okay, so this is their how do we say? Yeah. I mean, we all make this kind of the pictures, and so they on the left hand side it said, if you vote agree on this referendum, our electricity price will be beautiful. I don't know what that means. What is a beautiful electricity price? Is that higher or lower? Anyway. Okay, on the right hand side is, you can see there's it's about. It's a lot of things about it, like the blackout. It's about blackout, because they insist that recently we have more and more incidents of a blackout. Not the whole blackout, but maybe this region or this area, suffer a temporary, energy power loss, like 15 minutes, 30 minutes, and this actually happens quite a lot. I mean, even on a regular basis, even with high percentage of nuclear power, and the official statement from Thai Power, which I think is also the true scenario because it happens a lot, is that sometimes a lot of accidents happen because your power grid, is all over, and sometimes little animal will trespass this grid and cause some malfunction or something like that. So it will have a temporary minor blackout. Not the whole country blackout thing, but they think this is all because we are, this is a symptom of we lacking electricity. So let's use nuclear power. Okay. So this is some of the argument, and so I'll briefly talk about why we oppose the referendum. So first one is there is a potential risk due to the geological fault concern. So this ironic because almost every single nuclear power plant in Taiwan have a fault nearby. I don't know how you can precisely select a site, just have that precise, just have a fault under or near. But I mean, any reasonable people will think this is not a very wise decision to build your nuclear power upon or near a geological fault. But this is what happened in Taiwan. So, for instance, in the third nuclear power plant, we have this Hengchun fault, almost directly run through the plant site, only 900 meters from the reactor. And so the unit 1, the first reactor, is right above a fault shear zone. It's a 剪裂带. I'm not an expert in geology, but that probably means that when it moved, the reactor above it will suffer from not just horizontal but also vertical movement, and that could have a huge impact on the safety of the reactor. And the second reactor is located on a anti-climb axis, which is it's potentially to if the fault crack, it could suffer strong compressive stress, and the fracture rock. I don't know what I'm really talking about, but that just means a very unstable geological structure. And the original design of the power plant can withstand 0.4 G ground acceleration, but the Thai Power's last report shows that the potential hazard could be up to 1.3 G. So basically, people are arguing about whether that resistance number is high enough or not high enough. But in my opinion, this is missing the whole point. The whole point is we should not build that nuclear power plant on that fault in the first place. And if we have the chance to make the decision, then we should not allow it to continue in that kind of operation under that circumstances. So we have that kind of it's not a nuclear power plant that located in a very firm or stable geological structure. It's right next to a fault. So this is the first reason why we think there is a potential risk. And again, the slide is crowded with words, but bear with me, and I will just read out loud some points. So the topic is the underestimated cost of nuclear, and actually the graph doesn't really correspond to the words, because the graph shows the global trend, or I think it's the North America or something, some regions trend of energy cost. So this graph is made by the Lazard, it's a Wall Street company. So it evaluated the cost of different energy sources. So you can see in the past 1 or 2 decades, the cost of the nuclear, which is the purple one. The purple one raised from 123 to 182 per megawatt hour. So it's a 49% increase. At the same time, the solar and the wind, solar is the yellow one and the wind is the blue one, dropped from relatively high to around 60 and 50 dollars per megawatt hour. So that trend is clear. But globally, that the cost per output for renewable energy is decreasing, due to the mature of the technology. And at the same time, the cost of nuclear power is increasing, and that is partly due to after Fukushima, not just Japan, but a lot of the countries decide to invest more money to enhance, to upgrade the safety standard of the nuclear power plant. But actually, you never know how much is really enough. So a lot of the nuclear power fall into a financial crisis. Some nuclear reactors in the U.S. have to rely on government subsidies to survive, and some reactors in Japan, even they propose for a license extension, they realize that if you include the cost of this enhancement, then for more, even they operate for 20 or 40 more years, they cannot make the ends meet. So they decide to decommission earlier. So this is the cost is a major issue today for nuclear industry, and that also that is also reflected on the total investment on nuclear and renewable energy. If you look at the statistic, the investment globally on renewable energy is 10 times larger than those investment on nuclear power. So not a good business. But anyway, back to Taiwan. Taiwan's official number says that nuclear power's cost is in Taiwanese dollar like $1.87 per kilowatt hour. Okay, so but that covers only the front end, the fuel cost, and the partial waste disposal fee. But what it does not include is the whole. Actually, it says that it includes the decommission and the final waste disposal, but because the decommission and the final disposal of high-rank nuclear waste is full of uncertainty, you don't really know how much that costs. So that number could be inflated in the future. So the $1.8 per kilowatt hour you see right there could be highly underestimated. And so, and especially if you want to continue the operation of the third nuclear power plant, you have to you don't just turn it right back on. You have to do what? You have to start safety review. You have to upgrade the equipment. You have to reinforce to come up with some reinforcement measures, and that all will significantly increase the cost of that particular nuclear power plant. And so what we think is that the current estimate for nuclear power cost is highly underestimated. And and we also have these things called the back-end operation fund. That means once the nuclear power plant reach the stage of decommissioning, or their waste have to be put into disposal, those funds, the back-end operation fund is the purpose to cover that kind of expense. But we currently have 250 billion New Taiwanese dollar for that fund. But if you look at it's actually 47, so I don't have the exact number in mind. But according to the international standard, we are 250 billion short of that fund, the scale, and you need at least 716 billion to be sufficient. So that basically means the current cost of the nuclear could be at 1 or 2 more Taiwanese dollar per kilowatt hour. And this is just an example from the U.S. and not from Taiwan, but we sometimes will cite it as a reference, the Diablo Canyon nuclear power plant in California, because its design is similar to the third nuclear power plant. And recently, the operator, I think it's PG&E, something like that, it brought up an extension proposal, a 5-year extension, and it required operation cost of $11.8 billion, and it's about Taiwan is about 3,000亿，3,000亿台币。And if you translate that into Taiwanese electricity cost, it's nearly about $4 per kilowatt hour. So it's going to be high. Of course, the translation is not going to be that precise because of other factor, but you can see that some case from other countries indicate that the real cost of nuclear power is definitely not just 1.8 Taiwanese dollar per kilowatt. And another example, well, this is not an example of extension. I believe the Vogtle is that how to pronounce it? Vogtle? Okay, this is in Georgia, USA. So it's a very, very expensive nuclear power plant. So just pretty briefly, after its construction, the Georgia power, the electricity power price for Georgia state raised 23%, and that is the highest in the state history. So you can, this is too small, but this is what I found. The bottom left, the bottom right corner is, some people on Reddit post saying, well, after the nuclear power plant is operated, my electricity bill is about 35% higher after the nuclear power plant operates. So of course we cannot verify whether that's exact increase percentage, but people are complaining about that. It is a very expensive nuclear power plant. And that is not a single case because, as I mentioned, on average, one nuclear power plant takes about 6 to 7 years to finish its construction. That's on average. And some maybe up to 10 or 20 years. For example, Taiwan's fourth nuclear power plant is almost 20 years construction but hasn't finished. So if you are a business owner, you invest so many money on one project and it takes about 20 years to finish, I will fire that project manager or I will charge a lot more for that project. Okay, so just a joke, but this just indicates that the cost of nuclear power might not be as cheap as they claim. And I think the most serious concern is still back to the nuclear waste issue, because I'm not sure whether you know we currently don't have a final nuclear waste disposal plant in Taiwan, and we don't have a site yet. Maybe if some of you from the U.S. you used to have Yukon Mountain, but maybe not anymore. But you have a whole lot of the countries. For example, in U.S. the country is very large, so it's relatively not that difficult to find a site for high-rank nuclear waste disposal area. But in Taiwan, it's almost impossible to find such a place, especially concerning the geological condition I just mentioned. Okay, so currently, like after the decommissioning of the third nuclear power plant, the spent, which is the used nuclear fuel, the spent fuel, will move into the spent fuel pools, like the picture on the right-hand side. Okay, but the pool fuel, the fuel pools has its storage limits, and once the limit is reached, no more fuel can be put in the pool. They have to take some out into the dry storage, then you can put more into the fuel pools for it to continue generating electricity. But so anyway, in the third NPP we have 535 storage space remaining. So if you do some translating, that means about 3 to 5 more years of operating more generating time. So even if you extend the lifetime, if you extend the operation for the third NPP, it might not operate for say 20 years, as some people wish. Maybe it's just 5 years. And you might say, well, let's put it into a dry storage then. But the thing is, the dry storage in Taiwan now has not, especially for the third NPP one, has not finished construction yet. And to be honest, its construction faced a lot of obstacles from including the local government or local community. Because to be honest, no one wants to live next to a nuclear waste repository site. But anyway, so the reality is, even if we continue use this nuclear power plant, we don't have room for the nuclear waste. And so anyway, how do we deal with nuclear waste? So we have like 5,000 tons of heavy metal spent fuel right now in Taiwan, and most of them stored right inside the MPP's fuel pool inside MPP. And so as I mentioned, the licensing and the construction of the dry storage facility face a lot of obstacles. And our high-level waste final disposal, we don't even have an act for that yet. Actually, the act for the regulation for high-level waste final disposal is recently being proposed by environmental organizations. So we still don't have that kind of legal framework for that. We don't have a regulatory basis. And so that is the kind of the obstacle that we are confronting with. And this is internationally how countries deal with this nuclear waste issue. So one common final solution is what they call deep geological disposal, DGD, of the nuclear waste. So to put it simply, you find a place with stable geological structure, hopefully not too much earthquake or something like that, and you drill down about 300 to 500 meters, and then you put your nuclear waste in some can, and of course you have to cover with concrete or something like that to make sure that the radiation will not leak out. And then you bury it down underground, like several 100 meters underground, and you kind of bury it for the next 100 or 1,000 years. Hopefully nothing goes wrong. Okay. So but that is that's in theory. But why in theory? Because we haven't witnessed that happen yet. The one that is the closest to operating is the one in Finland. It's called Spent Nuclear Fuel Repository in Finland, and that it takes them about 20 years to construct. The consultation and the site selection process began in the 1980s. Okay, 1980s, and after 20 years, they finally have a decision saying, okay, we are going to build this facility here, and they start construction in 2005. Okay, the schedule, the operation date is 2026, which is hopefully next year we will witness that. And that costs about 900 million euro. So I'm not sure whether that's a lot in Europeans' point of view, but to me, to Taiwan, I think that is a huge amount of money, of cost. And okay, anyway, so this is the only case that we have right now that is almost, near operation. But other countries, for example, France, Sweden, Japan, Germany, US, UK, we don't really have a long-term solution for high-level nuclear waste final disposal. And that also raised some issue about ethical issue. Like if you bury down for thousands of years, then our human history at this point is about 2,000 years, right? If you include the prehistorical one, maybe a couple more thousand years. And our governance structure, our administrative structure, what is the longest country that today is existing today? Maybe 200, 300 years, perhaps? How long is France? No. So imagine a country, imagine a government will last thousands of years to manage that facility and to make sure it doesn't go wrong. And there's a documentary I think is I recommend you to watch. It's called I think it's Into Eternity. 和你到中文叫做和你到永远。 very wonderful. The scientists in that documentary, they are trying to figure out we should design some characters or sign or labels to warn people, like generations after us. We have to warn them about this, their underground, this facility here. Don't dig down, And people say, maybe we should not warn them. If you don't put a sign here, they don't know that maybe if you put a sign here and they cannot read the sign, they will probably think, well, some treasure is hidden. let's dig it. So that raises some very interesting but ethically important issue. But anyways, they leave that all ethical issues aside. This is a technical and financial disaster, or maybe it's not disaster, but task to be solved. Okay, but in Taiwan, the stake is even higher because our geological condition is much more favorable to that. And some people talk about nuclear waste reprocessing, and that's I'm not sure it's still a trend right now, but people who support nuclear usually use that as it's not a waste. It's just like a plastic bottle. You can recycle it and make it into another nuclear fuel, and you can use it for generation. That's called circulate economy. But the truth is, so because reprocess it means you take the plutonium and uranium from the spent fuel and mix it, after some certain chemical process, mix into a new kind of a fuel for power generation. It's called MOX fuel. Okay, but the problem is, so imagine this is a spent fuel, used nuclear fuel. It's not that 100% can be completely turned into a new one. There will be remaining part. Remaining part you still have to find a place for its final disposal because it's still highly radioactive. Okay, and again, another reason is that the MOX fuel is not suitable for Taiwan's nuclear power plant. So the thing will be like we spend a lot of money shipping all of our spent fuel to, say, France, because they are the largest country who's dealing with reprocessing thing. Where you ship that to France, and they will reprocess the fuel and produce a bunch of MOX fuel. But that kind of a MOX fuel will not be able to use in Taiwan. And you have to, there will be a remaining part of that waste being shipped right back to Taiwan. And Taiwan, you have to find your way to deal with it. Now, France is not going to find a place and bury it for you. And so that is the thing in Taiwan. And so that proposal dies out very quickly. It's once, I think maybe in 2013 or 14, something like that, it has been proposed in the legislative yuan, but then due to reality issue, it's never happened. But also globally, it's not the majority part of the. It's not like majority part of the nuclear waste is being processed. It's only about 30%. 30% of the nuclear waste is being reprocessed, and the rest remains in like wet storage or dry storage. And you cannot see, okay? The graph on the right-hand side is the 4 countries in the world that do the reprocess thing. Okay, the largest one, of course, is France, and that has the most capacity of doing that. So it has 4 facilities, but 2 of them are under decommissioning. So that means in the future, the capacity of reprocessing for France will likely to decrease because 2 of their 4 new reprocessing facilities is going to be decommissioned. And Japan has one site that is doing the reprocess thing, but it's also decommissioned, okay? And Russia has 2, and 1 is under decommission. UK, 2 of them, 1 decommissioned in 2018, 1 decommissioned in 2021. So basically, what this means that in the history of the nuclear development, 30% of the waste being reprocessed, but in the future, that percentage is going to drop because half of the facility in the world are going to be decommissioned, unless there is going to be a new facility to start up. Okay, so talking about all that much, what I'm trying to say is that there are some challenges, challenges or difficulties, realities that we have to seriously confront with in Taiwan. That continuing use nuclear power is not an easy solution for Taiwan, and that comes with a lot of cost and uncertainties and even risk. And so now we're going to, after saying how bad is nuclear power, I don't really mean to say that. I'm just saying we don't suit for each other. Maybe, take a step back. Some countries go with nuclear power, and I think that maybe that's because they have their better condition, whether it's societal or geological conditions better than Taiwan, so they make that choice. I would respect that, but I think in Taiwan we have to face that reality. We just don't suit each other. Okay? But okay, let's go back to the remaining parties. As you can see that the pro-nuclear part, one major reason of trying to reactivate the nuclear power plants, they think Taiwan's energy transition policies are on the wrong track. So they often say that the wrong energy policy. So they repeat it over and over again. Now people, they hear about solar power, they hear about wind turbine. They immediately think, wow, that sounds bad, But that's very ironic because actually we are doing not a really bad job on that regard. So let's talk about is Taiwan's energy transition on the right track? And okay, so this is just a graph. So let's go first with this one. Sorry about that. So this is three. I don't know, I don't know how to say the pie chart, right? So the bottom one is the one in 2016 is our energy mix. So the blue one is gas. So on the right, on the left hand side is a gas. That's about 30%, and then on the right hand side, the gray one is the coal, 45%. So together, the thermal power together is about 76%, and the nuclear in 2016 is 12%. Renewable energy is about 4%, 4.8%. So this is in 2014, and the upper one is 2025. The first half of 2025. As you can see, that gas going is up to I think it's about 48%. And coal is down to 35%. So a lot of reduction in coal fire. And renewable energy is 30%. Okay, so this is the difference. So again, back to this chart. You can see on the right hand side, this is the right hand is a coal drop from the 45 to 39. There's a 6% decrease, and the gas increased 47% from 30 to 47, and renewable 4.8 to 11.7. That's 160%. Of course, it's because the baseline was low, and the nuclear dropped 61%. So this is just the trend of our energy mix. So, but what I think is most significant here is the coal decline, the coal power. Last year, in 2024, the coal generation was the historical low after 2003. And this year, the first half of 2005, our coal percentage was 10% lower than the same period yet last year. So this is just trying to illustrate that we actually have done a pretty good job on decreasing coal fire, and also on the renewable energy generation. So as I mentioned, 166% increase, and our initial target for 2025 was 20%. And at this pace, of course, the 20% target was later down to 15% a couple of years ago. So the official target for 2025 was 15% for renewable energy. And it looks like we might just fall shortly behind or just make that 15% 50% mark, and maybe we'll reach 20% next year. Okay, so does that mean a total failure to that goal? I would say we actually maybe 75 out of 100. Not really good, but I think it's on the right track and acceptable. And if you consider that we have COVID in a couple years ago, that actually slowed down the development of renewable energy. But even that, for wind and solar, the annual amount of capacity connected to the grid is over 1 gigawatt every year. So that, if you put it globally, that is actually a pretty good performance. And this is, people sometimes find it shocking that we actually rank kind of pretty high in terms of renewable energy capacity. So on the left-hand side is the wind capacity. We actually rank the 5th in the world. So the first one is of course China, because they are China. They have they have vast land and their will to do that. Okay. Then the second one is I think it's no, it's the UK. Is it UK? Let me look at the computer because the solutions. Yeah, it's the UK. And the third one is Germany, then it's Netherlands, Taiwan, Denmark, Belgium, France, Vietnam, Japan. America actually ranked pretty behind, just above Korea, and just behind Sweden. Okay, so anyway, Taiwan ranked 5th in terms of offshore wind capacity, and on the right-hand side is the solar capacity. So solar is not that our strength because considering our specific geological condition, we have a lot of mountains and things like that. But we rank about still in the top 20. I think it's to something like 16 or something. Okay, and the countries ahead of us, all with larger land area, land available, and land for development. So yeah, I mean, not the best and not really achieving our initial goal, but I would say that's something we should not look down ourselves. Okay, so in terms of air pollution, because people will say that if you don't use nuclear power, that means you have a lot of more energy has to come from gas and coal. Together, this 80% of energy come from thermal power. But the statistics actually show that the amount of pollutant emitted from our thermal power plant and the PM, the particle matters that comes with it actually decrease a lot. So you can see that this is around from 2016 to 2024, the amount of PM 2.5 decrease. So it's the red line decrease, and the bar is the air pollutant, total amount of air pollutant emitted from thermal power plant also decrease. So the pollutant decreased about 68%, and the PM 2.5 decreased over 50%. This is nationwide. And if you look at local province, because like the Taichung or Tainan, Kaohsiung, those center and the southern part of Taiwan usually suffer more from air pollution. They also have a significant improvement of air pollution, like Taichung City PM 2.5 average. I don't know how to say that in English. 好客的地方，35.5 down to 13.9. Okay, so I'm not going to read all the numbers. Just you get the idea. So actually, this is not that too hard to understand. Theoretically, because Taiwan, if you look at the grid right now, we are actually replacing coal with natural gas, and we don't really like natural gas because it's also fossil fuel. But to be honest, the pollution, the air pollution and the green gas emission from natural gas is better than that from coal. So it's almost. I remember that for XO is about 100, something like 120 times better, and then for PM is like 50 times better than traditional coal-fired power plant. So anyway, though we don't like natural gas, but at this point, more gas and the fewer coal, to some degree, contribute to the air pollution improvement. And of course, don't forget that we have actually a lot of increase in renewable energy, and that also contribute to that. So, so just look at the power sector, because not all the pollution comes from power sector. We also have air pollution from like industry or our mobile, our cars or motorcycle, things like that. And all that all together, our improvement, we environmental NGOs have done a lot to monitor those air pollution in different areas, and that all together contribute to the decrease of air pollution in the long term. Okay, so I think it's not fair to say that because we pursue the nuclear-free homeland, and that is going to, what they call generating power of 3 world long, because I think the statistics shows otherwise. And that's the graph. This is the GHG trend of Taiwan. So you can see that it's not like we have done very well. That don't see a sharp decrease. A lot of maybe in some Western country they will have a better performance. But hey, we are categorized as a developing country. I don't know, a developed country. So I don't know. So we actually have a high economic growth rate, but even so, we managed to have a gradual, not great, but gradual and mild reduction of our green gas emission. And that is also with all the while with our nuclear is phasing out. So you can see that compared to our 2005 baseline, 2005 baseline is our legal baseline for net zero emission. So we have almost 5% of the reduction compared to 2005. And we don't fully achieve the target. The target for this year is 10% lower than 2005 baseline, and we are about 5%. So we are not really achieving that target. But if you hear someone saying we are increasing our green gas emission because we don't use nuclear, that is not the truth, because the truth is we are actually decreasing our GHG emission. And if you look at the power emission factor, that is we solely look at the contribution from power sector. Okay, because as you know, the carbon emission comes from a lot of area, like the commercial, industry, transportation. But if you just solely look at the electricity, the carbon dioxide per kilowatt hour decreased from like 554 gram to 474 gram. So that is a decrease. The trend is decreasing, and all the while nuclear decreased from 16% in 2007 and 44% in 2024. So I'm not just saying there is a causal link here. Of course not. There is no causal link here. But the thing is that we can and we actually did manage to reduce our air pollution and the greenhouse emission without more and more nuclear, and actually with less and less nuclear. And people will ask, well then you can do better with more and more nuclear. And I will say yes, but with all the cost and the risk that I just mentioned before. And then I think we have a better way to achieve the same result without to bear with those costs. And yeah, so now I'm not sure if I have more enough time, but then let's just briefly talk about another reason for they want to use the nuclear power plant is Taipower, which is the state-owned energy company. So the Taipower has suffered tremendous loss during a couple of years, and there are a lot of reasons for that. And one of them, of course, is the Ukrainian and Russian war. In the past few years has caused the international fuel price to go up and down, and especially for fossil fuel, and that contributes greatly to the financial loss of Taipower. And also, I'm not sure if you know that, but we actually have the lowest electricity price in the world. Not the lowest, but maybe the top 3. Is it top or lowest? Lowest 3 or 5 electricity price in the world, both domestic or industrial electricity price. And every time that we want to, raise the electricity price, that becomes like a political struggle. Both party, DPP, KMT, or other party, they will accuse each other. If they are not in power, they will accuse each other, saying, "Well, you don't care about people's life or death." Things like that. How dare you want to increase the electricity price? But actually, the low price or the low electricity price for Taiwan actually causes a lot of problem, because that is like you don't calculate the external cost into your energy price, but the external cost doesn't go away. It's like reflect in people's health. It reflects in the overconsumption of electricity or the degradation of the environment, things like that. But anyway, so Taiwan has recently started to adjust the electricity price upward a little bit. But even after some adjustment, you can still see that the damage has been done. The past damage has been done, and the Ukrainian and the Russian war caused to that further that damage. So the conclusion is that Taipower suffered financial loss, tremendous one. And how do you solve that kind of financial loss? We think it's not by use nuclear power, because first of all, nuclear power at this moment, if you reactivate the third nuclear power plant, about 5 to 6% of the grid. 5 to 6%, they don't affect the whole price that much. So you don't see that simply because you turn on the third nuclear power plant and you can see a $1 drop of the energy price. It's not that huge of an impact. And the second one, as I mentioned, there is hidden cost of the nuclear power that we don't include in our calculation. And so we think the best long-term solution is to expand the renewable energy capacity, because the past few years we suffered such a large financial loss because we have 98% of a reliance on import energy and mostly fossil fuel. And what kind of an energy source can replace that kind of imported fossil fuel in a short period of time? We think it's renewable energy, not nuclear power, because as mentioned, building one nuclear power takes 6-7 years, and reactivate the third nuclear power plant also takes several years. So with the time we have, I think it's most wise to invest in renewable energy that can quickly decrease our reliance on coal and the natural gas. A lot of people don't like natural gas, me either. So we say, let's develop renewable energy much quicker to replace that. And also, we have to ensure our energy price really reflect the actual cost, the actual external cost of our energy consumption. And So energy efficiency, low carbon transition. Anyway, so these are all the things that we can do to have a reasonable and stable electricity price, energy price. But solely by using nuclear power won't solve that problem. Okay, so this is some graph about our electricity price trend. So you can see that on the right hand side, the gray one is the cost of power generation, how much money we spend on generating power. You can see starting from 2021, there is a spike, upward spike. That is because the Ukrainian and the Russian war. And before that, it's relatively close. It's relatively stable. And another line is the electricity price for domestic use and for commercial and the industry. So in the past few years, the selling price and the generation cost is relatively close to each other. But after 2021, distance just grow very, very much. So you can see that this is why Taiwan suffered a lot of loss. And the right hand side is the orange one. The orange one is the percentage of the nuclear power. So you can see 2014, the nuclear percentage is 60%, and 2022 is 6%. And while the nuclear percentage is decreasing, you can see that at the high of the nuclear percentage, we actually have a relatively high energy price at around like $3 per kilowatt. So, but when it's 2023, we also have a 3-point-something electricity price, but we have a low percentage of nuclear power. So that graph trying to deliver a message is that high nuclear percentage does not automatically equal to low energy price. That causation link does not exist. Okay, so also lower renewable energy does not automatically equal to higher energy price. While we do think energy price should be reasonably higher to reflect the external cost. And this is the poll that asks people saying, well, do you want to, are you willing to pay more for example, to mitigate the climate crisis, and how much more are you willing to pay? Okay, so you can see that on the right hand side, on the left hand side, it asks that so if you have to pay more to use renewable energy to generate power, how much are you willing to do that? So 46% say they are willing to do that. 25% say they very much willing to do that. So together it's about almost 70% willing to pay more for their electricity price to use renewable energy. And how much more? On the right hand side, so 32% is about for each kilowatt hour is $1 to $2, and 33% is less than $1 per kilowatt hour. And 12%, 2 to 3, and $3 and above, 6%, 6%, and 12% say I won't even pay more, pay one time more for that. But actually, so overall, people are willing to pay more if you give them reasonable cost, and I think the cost is pretty reasonable right now. We want to mitigate the climate crisis, so we are going to use more and more renewable energy power. And at this moment, I know some people maybe from like UK, from Germany, from European country. At this point, because your energy market is a free market principle, so the energy price, the renewable energy price is actually low. But in Taiwan, at this point, we are still going through some relatively high renewable energy price period because our industry is just at its beginning. They are starting to grow, and you need the policy called the feed-in tariff policy to support the industry. So feed-in tariff means the government will provide you a certain amount of rate, for example, $5 for kilowatt hour you generate, and I will purchase that from you for next 20 years. And that is obviously higher than the market value. And people will say that, well, this is not right. Well, how can you buy electricity with the higher than market price? But that is because at this point of our renewable energy industry, it's new, it's amateur, and it still has a lot of uncertainty and a risk. So you need this kind of a policy to serve as an incentive for people, for a company, or for even community, like cooperative, to invest money in it. So actually, this is why at this moment we have relatively high renewable energy price. But in the long term, as the feed-in tariff policy will phase out, the price will go back to market level, and that will, as I show you, the energy cost is going down. Okay, so sorry, too much explanation, but at this moment, people are willing to pay more for renewable energy. Okay, so almost So this is just one quick slide saying that by not increasing our energy price, we are actually subsidizing the fossil fuel. Because at this moment, 80%, 70% of our energy comes from fossil fuel, and the cost of the fossil fuel is not being reflected in our energy price. So with such a low energy price, we are subsidizing the fossil fuel, and subsidizing fossil fuel is something that the international community think is wrong. The COP28 say, well, our consensus is stop the subsidies on fossil fuel. Okay, so this is another quick graph saying that well, the electricity only takes about 2%, 3 at the most for some industry, 2% of the industrial production cost. So if you do some calculation, the overall impact on the production cost of industry is less than 1%. So it's not that much. So people, you often being, the political party will say if you increase the electricity price, all the things will go up and the people will suffer. But actually, it's just not that serious of a thing. Okay, so this is the final one, the final 2 slides. So my conclusion is we have achieved, during the 10 years of the transition, energy transition, we actually have achieved a lot of valuable things that, leave aside the nuke zero one. We have a significant growth in renewable energy, and that is something that some performance that even if you put internationally, people will think, well, Taiwan has done a tremendous job, and we have reduced a great deal of coal-fired power, and our air condition is improved, and we are not doing a great job, but we gradually decline our carbon emissions. So we are actually step by step toward a pathway that is get rid of our reliance on fossil fuel and move forward for a cleaner, more greener energy mix. And we think that while those targets, the initial target have not been fully met, but the progress is substantial. And if we kind of distract ourselves, not just our attention, but also our resources, our political will, and anything like that, we distract this away from what we achieved and to nuclear power. That could undermine what we have achieved and the momentum that keeps us going forward. Okay, so this is what we think. What we should do next is to strengthen the climate governance, and especially cross-sector, because for a long time the government just the economic sector do their business and the transportation sector do their business, and there are not much communication or coordination. But I think that is going to change in the future, and we have to really enhance the grid resilience. I don't have the time to talk about that today because I'm sure you are aware I haven't talked about the national security things they mentioned. Maybe we'll talk about that in the Q&A. But the simple conclusion or statement is that we think under Taiwan's situation to protect ourselves in the case of Taiwan and China conflict is to develop distributed and deconcentrated energy system. You don't want an energy system that is concentrated on few dots, few nuts, few large coal-fired or gas-fired or nuclear power plant. Because if they attack those power plants or they attack your major grid, then you just lost all your energy supply for that region or whole country. But if your energy system is more distributed, they are not going to paralyze your whole country by attacking your solar panel on a place. So I think this kind of gradually become a global consensus that renewable energy, along with smart grid and power storage, can become a very resilient, energy system compared to the traditional, thermal power or nuclear power one. And especially we learn from the lessons from in the Ukraine and the Russian conflict. You can see that the Russian take the Ukrainian nuclear power plant as a hostage, and even cause some safety concern. And we don't want that to happen in Taiwan, especially we are an island nation, and if one of our nuclear power plant was to be occupied or even damaged, that will have a lot of consequence for Taiwan. So we think that our energy transition have to include that kind of a concern, and using nuclear power isn't really a solution, even on that regard. Okay, so all right. So let me see what I have left. No, okay. So this is the final one. I think we have about 20 to 30 minutes. I'm not sure. Maybe you guys stay up late because tomorrow is Sunday. All right. So let's open the floor to you guys. Do you have? Yeah.
I think the mic is a bit stuck.
Sorry, too much graph and statics and the slide is to discuss.
I think just speak up and then we can use that.
You talked a lot about renewable energy. Not all renewable energy is suited well for Taiwan. So can you maybe talk about which ones you think are suited better for Taiwan, and which ones that can help expand the percentage of renewable energy use? I also remember there was a new contract about some type of thermal reactor with some company in the United States because they said something about using the fault lines around Taiwan.
I mean geothermal?
I think, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So maybe can you explain some of this?
Yeah, of course. So one by one, I think I'm not really going to dive in all that detail, but in our opinion, I think the best solution, we actually have a simulation. We use a model called GCAN model, and we simulate that if we want to reach net zero in 2050, I think like most of will come from wind and then solar. So these two are our top priorities. And of course, they have their challenges because at this moment, in the past few years, our target for solar is mainly achieved through the development of rooftop solar. Because rooftop solar at this moment in Taiwan is the least controversial because when it comes to land solar, like the solar panel on the farmland or fishery, it involves that the change of land use. And for example, that if you build it on a fishery, then the fishermen that used to cultivate like shell or fish there, the economy situation could be affected, could be impacted because you put a solar panel on it. Of course, people are trying to scientifically find a way to how to make the solar panel and the production, whether it's crops or fish or shell, to coexist. But that is, of course, it's underway. Has not matured yet. Okay, so people think that we think environmental organizations think that while we are trying to improve the development mechanism of the land solar, we should maximize the potential of the rooftop solar. So both in terms of like in a residential area, everyone has a roof on maybe not everyone if you have a place to live. But anyway, every building has a roof, right? And that we should kind of if that roof is not being covered by some other structure and something like that, then it's okay to have a solar panel on it. And that could contribute, little by little, but contribute a lot to our overall solar generation. So actually, if you look at the history, so initially the goal for rooftop solar was 2 gigawatt, but like within the 1 or 2 years, it surpassed that number. So the goal went up to 4, then it's surpassed, and up to 6 and to 8 gigawatt. So while the goal for land solar has has not been fully reached, the goal for roof solar power has been surpassed several times. So in my opinion, first we have to maximize that potential. So that not just domestic, but also industry. So like for example, TCMC or other like big tech company, they consume so many electricity and they require large area of land to build their factory. But do they have solar panel on their factory if the condition permitted? So we think that, so we also, our other initiatives say, well, you have to carry out your social responsibility by developing more green energy by yourself, not just purchasing from the market. So that's one thing, so rooftop solar power. But still, I think in the end of the day, we still have to face the fact that in terms of solar power, the most potential will come from land. And so I remember there was this report said, like, similar to Korea, like maybe about almost 10% of our land will have to combine with the solar. So it's not like it's taken over by solar, because the specialty about renewable energy is it can coexist with existing land use. If this was a farmland and I build a nuclear power on it, it's no longer a farmland. It's no longer a farm, no longer a fishery. But that could happen if that is a solar panel. So, but you have to find a way to make them coexist. So I think that is also what we are trying to do. So for the past few years, my colleague has worked with central government, local government, and the industry to find a way to evaluate the social and environmental impact for the solar panel development in the farmland and fishery, and trying to find a regulatory framework for that. And it's not really mature yet, but I think that's the direction that we should go. And I think offshore wind is another area of potential, because the Taiwan Strait is actually it's said to be the most potential wind farm in the world. So it has a large potential to generate a lot of wind power. But they're also confronted with some other environmental concerns, like the white dolphin or the sea ecology, something like that. And also the fishing industry also rely on that ocean space. So our organization is not really an expert on that. I think this is the area by environmental rights organization and other. But to understanding that also is a very large potential. And but I think there's one potential obstacle that is confronting right now is that we are trying to build a industrial chain, and that is the domestic or national wind power industry. Because at this moment we are kind of providing some financial incentive for foreign company like from Denmark or Northern European country to invest and to build the wind turbine in Taiwan. And of course that is because they have the most technology there. But we also wanted to provide technical and some support so that can foster our own Taiwanese wind industry. But that I think has hit some bottleneck in recent years. And that not an expert there, but I would say that's a really essential, like a key challenge in the future. And in terms of geothermal, I think in the past the potential has been really underestimated. But again, geothermal is not really, our organization mainly is more focused on solar, but geothermal, we are not an expert. But we think that it's really, it has the potential to replace nuclear as a base load energy because it's stable. The output, once it's connected to the grid, it's not like solar and wind will go up and down according to the weather or atmosphere condition. It's like stable output. Yeah. So, but they also has its own challenges because most of our high potential geothermal site is in the eastern part of Taiwan, and a lot of them located in our indigenous people traditional land, traditional area. So you have to have their permission. You have to communicate with them before you can start drilling, testing, and constructing your geothermal power plant. But yeah, it has a high potential, development potential. And for water, I think it's less because the geological condition for Taiwan is not really suitable for large-scale water power. Yeah. So I think the most highly discussed are above, and of course some people talk about the tide, from the ocean, the wave, the tide. But I think whether both technically speaking or commercially speaking, it's not really there yet. Probably could contribute a little bit, but I'm not sure the whole potential. How much is the whole potential? Yeah.
Question? Yeah.
I was wondering if you could say anything about the state of utility scale storage.
Yeah, that is something I have to be honest, I'm not really familiar with. But I do know there's a lot of trying to do a demonstrative one. So it's not a facility scale. But what I can tell you, for example, there are some gas stations in Taiwan. So owned by the CPC, the Chinese petrochemical company. So gas station, as you all know, in the future it will be phased out because we use electronic cars. So what should they do? So one strategy for them is they will have solar panel on the rooftop and some power storage in the facility. So it can become a multi-purpose. You can serve as a recharge station for your mobile. It also could serve as a resilience center once the disaster or wartime. Yeah, you can connect to the local microgrid. Yeah, but the cost, of course, for the storage is very high. Someone in that project told me that each power storage costs about 100 how much is that in English? 100 billion? 100 billion? Yeah, so it's a lot. So I will not earn that much money in my whole life. Anyway, so that is, but actually, I think the cost in recent years is not as high before, and but another thing I think related to that is still social acceptance, because people are still afraid of a large battery next to your door. So I think that is, maybe not relevant to your question, but I think one major challenge for energy transition is, before we are not really familiar with all those energy facilities, right? Coal-fired power plant far away from me, nuclear power plant far away from me, unless I live right there, But if I live in Taipei or somewhere, I don't see that. Maybe not through my whole life, I won't see any energy facility except for the electricity poles or the grid. But in the future, we have to get used to that. If you go outside, you will see solar panel on your neighbor's rooftop, and if you go to the ocean, you will see the wind turbine, and next to you maybe there's some recharge station. And people tend to be frightened by those things, or not just frightened, they just don't want them near us. This is a typical not in my backyard mentality. But I think in the past, we just simply transfer the cost to the people who near adjacent to that facility. But we enjoy our own energy consumption. But I think the one principle for energy transition is that everyone have to bear the cost, and at least you have to know the cost of your energy consumption. And I think this one, maybe not really related to your question, but maybe it does, because the possibility or the degree of the diffusion of, say, energy storage or smart grid or renewable energy depends on those social acceptance. And that is, I think, a crucial point in Taiwan, because one of the reasons that this referendum is getting so much attention and even social acceptance is because people read on newspaper every day saying, well, this place has a protest due to the solar project, and these people afraid that solar panel will emit some toxic things that will poison their water and poison their crops and things like that. And some even say, well, solar panel have radiation. People will find it absurd, but that is, well, to be honest, that is our job, to do what we call energy education and to do social communication, saying, well, this is not true, and actually this can coexist with us. Okay, sorry, that's what detour, a little bit detour.
Maybe we can take like a last round of questions and collect them because it is getting.
Yeah, let's go with maybe 2 or 3 together.
Yeah, let's just go around the first way.
Just quickly, on the security side, I mean, a lot of think tanks, U.S. think tanks have constantly said that, Taiwan needs to have at least, one nuclear reactor to counter a possible potential Chinese blockade. So I'm just wondering, what are they not getting? Like, what is the thing that you think they're not getting right, such that they keep making these kind of suggestions?
And they're like, great, you're split them all. So you first.
I kind of wanted to reintroduce a political discussion on this because we're having this discussion at the moment where we have like a global downturn of an independent ecological movement, and I'm seriously wondering if your kind of attitude towards this this referendum of it being ill-advised in the first place, like not viewing it as an opportunity of public politics, comes in the wake of a downturn in the global ecological movement. Is there just because if this had happened like 7 years ago, I wonder if you had thought about this referendum differently and had viewed it as an opportunity for a different politics.
Okay, so can you?
Okay.
Because I think I missed a little bit. So can you just simply explain it?
So my question is, you kind of described this referendum as ill-advised in the first place, pushed through the legislative.
So basically not democratic, as I say it, right?
Yeah, but I mean, they are getting democratic legitimization through it. And so my question is, is that a sincere held belief on this referendum, or is that an expression of the current political moment the ecological movement finds itself in? Because if this had happened 8 years ago, wouldn't you have been able to organize through this referendum in a very different way that you maybe don't think is possible today?
Then Richard Warren, you and you. Yeah, you first.
Mine is about local perceptions and if nuclear politics are becoming a polarizing issue. Because, for example, in Spain, what we see is that nuclear politics is something that is very much supported by people called right-wing, in contrast with the left. And I don't know if there's a similar dynamic also playing out now in Taiwan, and also with renewables. Because we see that, for example, the opposition party, well, in Spain we have a central-left government, and this is also something that is being used by opposition parties to try to delegitimize any political decision.
So your question is, so do I observe the situation where the nuclear is supported by the right wing and while...
It is creating a divide between, for example, DPP supporters and Kuomintang supporters.
Yeah, so you want to know whether there's a right-left coming there? Or?
Not that much, but if that issue is being...
Oh, is that issue relevant in this? Okay, so I'm going to try to address that in best of our understanding. So, okay, so first with the one with how I'm aware that a lot of the U.S. think tank, they are writing a lot of articles saying that Taiwan should, strengthen our energy security, resilience, and by saying that, I mean that using nuclear power, and also so not me, but my colleague, they also write some articles to respond and put it on Diplomat, the magazine. Because a lot of articles saying that Taiwan should use nuclear comes from the Diplomat. But anyway, yeah.
Other leading Taiwan writer, but that's not for me. That's not for me.
Okay. So that is a very complex issue. So first of all, there is a mainstream argument that's saying that under the situation of blockade, and lockdown of the Taiwan Strait. So your storage of your natural gas will soon run out. 2 weeks storage will run out, and in comparison, the nuclear can last for a whole year. One rod of a nuclear fuel can last for a year, and so you should use nuclear power. But so our response is that first, similar to what I've responded by in the end of my speech, is that we think that in terms of resilience and then security, nuclear is not the sole answer. Maybe, to some degree, if you use nuclear energy and when there's a lockdown, theoretically you can last longer than natural gas with the same amount of energy inventory. But we don't have to choose according to our own value and vision, we also can choose other route. So our reply is that while nuclear energy can do that, the renewable energy along with microgrid and power storage can also achieve that. So that is also, and probably can cope better with some emergency, or if they have a strategic attack on some of your larger power plant. And of course, that is all hypothetical because this hasn't happened there. But in some hypothetical discussion, that like the 兵推, I don't know how to say 兵推, 军事演习. War gaming, yeah, there is some scenario being discussed that renewable energy could be served to increase your resilience. And another, I think less attractive but I think realistic discussion is that, well, actually during the time of conflict or wartime, your energy demand, your energy consumption is not the same as your daily consumption amount. So actually, the 14 days or for natural gas inventory, or say the 14 days of your storage, because the law says you have 14 days of inventory for your natural gas, so it can last at least 14 days. But that baseline for calculation is not wartime. It's for a regular, like everyday routine. So if you say, okay, during the wartime we will have this and that demand decrease, we are not going to run all the factory as status quo. The TSMC are not going to produce their chips 100% as they are doing right now, maybe last 50%, something like that. So you will have some certain degree of energy consumption decrease. So under that scenario, the same amount of say natural gas or coal can stand longer. Maybe if you deploy some other domestic measures to control the domestic energy consumption, that kind of energy can still last for enough period of time. And also, we are although we are like decommissioning our coal-fired power plant, not all the coal-fired power plant unit has been teared down. So it's called the backup unit for emergency. Of course, this is raising some controversy, saying why do you keep those coal-fired units? Certainly you don't have enough power, so you want to use that. Well, but in our opinion is that reaching net zero is one scenario. It's our vision. So we are going to get rid of the coal-fired generation in the long term. But under a time of conflict, that is a different situation. So under that different situation, if you say we are going to reuse this coal-fired unit for a month, in my perspective, I would say, okay, that's acceptable. Because to be sure, I'm not saying that we should just use them whenever we need. But in the case of emergency, that is an acceptable option. And if you ask me, then why don't we use nuclear power then? Well, the answer is simple. Because to keep nuclear power as a backup energy source has a larger cost than to keep a coal fire as a backup. Because for coal, we can just put there, and once you need it, you turn it on, connect to the grid. But nuclear power, you have to keep the reactor. You have to constantly monitor the reactor and the nuclear fuel is still in the reactor pool. So it's present a constant risk and constant task for high intense monitoring. So for me, it's not economical or not rational to keep a nuclear reactor just for just in case, because if I keep it, I will run it because there is a must run capacity for nuclear power. That means it has to run that capacity to be economically and energy efficient. If you just keep it up and down, then the nuclear power is very expensive and efficient. So if I am the government, if I am going to use that nuclear for backup energy, that means the longer use of it. So that contradicts my value. So so back to the question. I think the worst scenario is that there is a blockade and a conflict happening between Taiwan and China. Then we use the backup emergency energy from coal and from gas to supply our the energy demand, and we lower our other energy demand, unnecessary energy demand, through all sort of measure, industrial measure, domestic measure, so the certain amount of energy can help us last longer. And then again, we strengthen our grid, our storage, and our renewable energy, so that we will not suffer a total paralysis just because single nut being attacked. Okay, so that is of course not a very comprehensive and of course not very mature, because we are still at this moment trying to to make our argument more solid, because this is a recent argument, given the quick rising tension in Taiwan Strait. Okay, so of course I think this is a very high challenge, very large challenge for us. Okay, so the second question, if I don't understand it wrongly, so I will understand it this way. So how do I understand this referendum in terms of democracy, the democratic process, and while it's directly proposed by the legislative yuan, doesn't people go out and vote reflect some degree of democracy or collective will? And how do I see that? And if it were me, how will I utilize this event? Can I say that? Okay. I think this is a debate or discussion long ago, even in 2018, because before, when I was much more younger, maybe 18 or 20 something, still in campus, and we think that referendum is a very important right, the direct right for people, can to have a say in the national policy, and we actually try to lower the threshold of referendum, because we used to have a very high threshold for referendum. You have to pass like 50% or something of total population to come out to vote something. So it's almost impossible to pass. So I support, and a lot of people support the lower threshold for referendum, and we also think that people should have the right to put a lot of things into referendum, that whether that's related to political rights or value or economic affair. Okay, but I think in 2018, I'm not like I don't change my mind that the referendum is actually a very important democratic tool. But we do see that in Taiwan, in this particular political structure, because we are very polarized, and not just polarized, we are polarized around certain topics like China, like national identity, China, independence, unification, and so that a lot of issues that, even though does not directly relate to those, for example, independence or unification, will be dragged along. If you support independence, then you must support this. If you don't like Taiwan independence, then you should vote with, So it's like a package. If you were here in 2018 in Taiwan, you can see, because we have like how many, 10 or 12, something like that, referendum. So too many people don't really understand how to vote. So each camp, they will have like green camp and blue camp, they'll have a card saying vote yes for one, vote no for two, and vote blah, blah, blah. And people go to the voting stations, oh yeah, vote right here, and vote no here. And some people just get lazier, they say just vote no to everything. Yeah, that's true. Or just vote yes for everything. And then so at this point you start to wonder, so is there something wrong about our like the institutional design, our the referendum design? Can we make it more like people can really engage in public affair discussion? Because I believe that it's only like a few months. Like I propose so today this referendum is official. Okay, people are going to vote it. Maybe 6 months or it's not 6 months. I think it's three months later. So you only have like 3 months to discuss it, and the 3 months. The discussion quality in the 3 months is very bad. So it's most likely the party will go and they will have they will mobilize their supporter and demonize the other camp and say, okay, so just vote with me, So I'm just what I'm thinking is, so how can we make this tool, this mechanism much more democratic and allow more democratic discussion and substantial discussion. And but then again, I also realized maybe this is not just about mechanism design. It's about the fundamental, the political ecology in Taiwan. The green, blue, whatever color, and the polarization, and the fact that smaller party like Social Democrat, Green Party don't have a say in the political area, and so even you are a center or center left, center right, you have to side with your far right colleague because there is no common ground for you. If you talk to other, if you are center, actually right and left is not that significant in So say if you are blue, if you are right, milder blue camp competition and a milder green camp competition, and if we communicate, we will be labeled as traitor by our own colleague. But if there is a third power or a third party, of course, DPP, there's another question, is how is people Okay, so anyway, so back to the question. I think the problem is not the referendum per se. Okay? Referendum per se is something that we think is important, essential, and but it has to go. First of all, the process has to be improved. The procedure of the referendum has to be redesigned so that longer and the better discussion can happen. And of course, not like this time that when there's almost no social discussion and just some politician just put it on the table and say, let's put it into a vote and boom, and we're going to have a referendum two months later. Okay, so okay, so also back to the last question, the left and right, is that relevant in our discussion today? What I was saying, I think most of you will agree that in Taiwan there's no really left and right spectrum. Of course you can, if you say, well, if it's more for social welfare, more for reducing social inequality, and we think we should restrict the privilege of the industry. Well, those kind of politicians might exist, individually. And if you say some politicians stand firmly opposed to immigration, and they think we should really impose martial law, something like that. Those politicians also individually exist, but collectively, I will say this is not really a determining factor or characteristic of Taiwan, because I think generally we don't really have a left wing or socialism culture or legacy in Taiwan's political culture, because during the martial law period, I think all the socialist communists were wiped out, and if they survive, they have to move underground, of course, and so that contributes to the deep-rooted fear toward communism or socialism of Taiwanese people. So you can see that now the major friend of the green or pro-green camp will be anti-communist. It's like in the 50s when the KMT saying the exact same thing. But I'm just saying that, of course, what we advocate for example, we this is, I think it's in vain, but we do talk about degrowth in Taiwan. And when some people talk about electricity prices or energy consumption, AI, and all of a sudden you will want to say, well, maybe we can just take a step back, saying, so if we want to reach net zero, but at the same time we want all those growth, whether it's GDP or commercial or its consumption, is that conflicting each other? So we try to promote that kind of idea, which is obviously very left-leaning in the maybe European sense. But in Taiwan, this is absolutely no market for that kind of idea, because people will be, so if you, for example, if you talk about, I think TCMC should have more social responsibility, it should not consume so many electricity and water, and you will be bombarded by some, saying, well, this is very important for Taiwan, and it's our treasure, and you are a libtard, something like that. Libtard, that's something I learned when I was studying in the UK. So this is very similar to 左交, I guess, right? Yeah. So Anyway, so we also talk about for energy cooperative, people like ordinary people, like housewife or community residents, or they put together a bunch of money and invest. They put a solar panel on their rooftop, and they use that kind of a revenue for education, for elderly care, child care. Yeah, I think that's people are advocate for that, and I think that's very, very close to what a left politic would advocate for. But in Taiwan, it's really very lacking both political support and the institutional support. For example, in terms of what we call civil power plant, where you can put the solar, like I say, 公民电厂, you can generate power for yourself and for your community. It's very the mechanism is very not favorable to ordinary people, because the bidding process is that I go to the highest bidder, I should say the lowest bidder. So if you if you are a large scale facility provider or energy provider, you are more likely to have the project, to win the project, to run the solar power plant. But if you are energy cooperative, then it's very unlikely for you to do that. And that is design. By design, you are difficult to do that, because the reviewing process will look at like how much can you promise to profit, and how much you can give the profit back to the local governments and something like that. And that is also, achievable if you are someone with more capital and the resources. And so that is something we also want to change. So if you want to promote more rooftop solar PV, as I mentioned, you have to lower the threshold and make more people able to join. So I would say I would not care so much about the left and right dichotomy. I would say what is the mechanism can allow the most people to participate and to lower the threshold and to eliminate the differences and the discrimination most possible. Then we'll go for that thing, And so if you go to the context, if you look at the context in other countries, the market mechanism is been heavily attacked by some, say, left activists. But in Taiwan, we don't even have that for a long time. So I would say, in Taiwan, we will go from, what we can do first and try to change people's mentality to accept what is more important. You put two values together and say, is property more important or taking care of your child and elderly more important? If they choose the latter, then it's the same as I persuade, say we should believe in left, not right. So this is what I think we should, our campaign should do in Taiwan. And of course, fundamentally, left-right does matter, do matter, but the framing is not the same in here. Okay, so okay. I'm not sure if the place allows more, but of course.
If you're fine talking, you talk about it.
Yeah.
No, there is a super quick distraction to in Taiwan there is no left, and whereas in other countries maybe we have more culture of like discussing green energy policy on the left for long. I think what Taiwan has one thing is that what we were talking about during the presentation is like already heavily subsidized energy prices. Like right now the government is keeping the energy prices very low. And I come from Belgium, and we have privatized the market.
Yeah.
And so during the Ukraine crisis, my daddy had to pay like 700 euro a month for his energy bill. It was crazy. But I think in Taiwan, like right now, there's a culture of like, well, the government is gonna pay for it. And I think that's good. Like I think we should it's one way maybe to reply like to people who say like, oh. The nuclear, if you don't have nuclear power, energy prices are going to be higher, or blah blah blah. I think we should say like, well, they're not, because the government is going to pay for it, because it's the government's job. That's what it does for healthcare in Taiwan, or the highways. Like there's a way to say to people. I think that it's already the current culture in Taiwan that the government pays for energy prices.
Well, this is actually a very, very interesting topic, because I think it's not that simple. It's very multidimensional, and the issue of whether we should privatize or say, because our energy sector is currently state-owned, right? You know, state-run the Thai power, not state-run the Thai power, but I think it's yeah, still yeah. Yeah, it's not like the directly, but the board is appointed by. Yeah, but the issue of like marketized Thai power, or to make Thai power a company, a private company, or a free power market. That discussion has long time ago. That has continued for a long time. But I think at this moment, yeah, there was once a policy direction saying we are going to, tear Thai power to three parts: one for production, one for selling, one for distributing, something like that. And except for the generating part, the other two will be run by like private companies, something like that. Okay, but that policy direction, I think, did not continue. It's kind of a change. So at this moment, the direction is still like Thai power as a whole, is a whole and the single company. Okay. But the thing about state-run energy company, the pros and cons, I think people are still, and we are not going fully into that discussion right now, because I would say, yeah, of course we can avoid that certain facility or certain provider just say we are going to raise 10 times higher the price, and that's crazy. And yeah, of course, to some degree, we don't think that energy is a commodity that can be sell and buy freely. You have to be of some degree of government intervention, and I stand for that. But also, in the case of the nuclear power, I think the reason why people think nuclear is so cheap in Taiwan is exactly because our nuclear power is like state-run, owned by the Thai power. So a lot of cost is absorbed by the government or by society without noticing that, okay, we actually bear that cost. Because if you see the case I present you in the US, this Vauxhall nuclear power plant raised 23% of the electricity price. People are going to feel that. They know that nuclear energy is expensive because the provider increased the price to reflect the cost onto the people. But in Taiwan, I think the reason why people think nuclear is so cheap is exactly because if it is determined by market principle, then nuclear power is not going to compete with renewable energy, like you see worldwide. But in Taiwan, in the economy where electricity price is solely determined by political party or government, that is difficult. Okay, but I'm not saying that we should just privatize the energy sector. Right? There has to be some middle ground or alternative model for that. I mean, so on the one hand, you can make sure that the energy will not become a commodity, that it's going to, only those who can afford it can enjoy it. And that's not something that we want. We want the government to monitor the supply and demand of energy, so that energy demand will not suddenly skyrocket and that price will not just skyrocket and something like that. But we also want that the actual cost can be reflected. Actual cost of energy consumption can be reflected, if not by political means, then to some degree by market means. Okay, so I'm not 100% sure about that, but I can just say that kind of discussion has continued, but not on the table, not very. I would just say this is not a priority for a lot of people. People only care about Taiwan Power's laws and how much dollar per kilowatt hour and things like that. But I think generally I agree that energy sector, at least for this moment, needs not a very high degree of government intervention. Especially you want to lay out all those infrastructure, grid and storage, something like that, and you don't want the people to pay the most cost, then the government has to do its job.
Last question.
Yeah, I will still be here before I hop on my taxi.
I understand like a diverse mix of alternative energies is the road to wipe out nuclear plants. But what I wonder, like you're talking about wind energy, solar energy, what about water energy? Thermal energy, but water energy. I mean, Taiwan has a lot of coast. And for example, when you look at Norway has not a single nuclear plant because they get most of the power from water.
Yeah, as I mentioned, the tidal power, I think that's the 潮汐法, the tidal power generation. Yeah, that's something people talk a lot about. But I mean, just hasn't reached the scale of a facility generation right now, and so especially I think due to a lot of already existing environmental concern, because at this moment, the construction or development of offshore wind it's already confronted with a lot of local resistance due to environmental concern and that kind of issue. And I think in Taiwan, any maritime construction, construction on or near the ocean or near the shore.
I mean, water plants.
So it's not ocean. It's water dam.
In Norway, for example, they have a lot of near the coastline or also under the ground, like water flow. They use energy tubing.
I think in Taiwan, we do have I think it's called 小水地跟惯性水地, like the water flow through a place, and because the difference of the height, so you can use that to generate power. So then again, because I think the Taiwan's the slope is too deep. So that of course the height difference is beneficial for generation, but also pose some, I think, the technical and the real challenges for that kind of project construction. And that also involves some environmental concern. People are really aware of the large-scale water generation. And at this point, our water generation is inherited from our from earlier Japanese colonial period and the KMT regime, and that is mainly for it's served more like a energy storage function. Like in the noon in like around 11 to 1 p.m. because of the solar is large, and you can use that extra power to kind of to get water to a higher position, and then when the sun falls down or in the night, then the solar contribution decrease, and then the people go back to the home, turn on their air condition, the energy demand raise up. You kind of release the water to the low point. Yeah, of course that exists, but I would say the scale is likely to remain what is right now. You know, and that is from the previous area, previous period of Taiwan's yeah. But I don't see it expand in a large scale. People are talking about the smaller water power, 小水力. So it's less environmental impact. The environmental impact is less, and it's not that much of a capacity. Yeah, and I'm not experienced, but I know some group and the local government are trying to advocate for that. Yeah, but I will say in general that will not contribute to a whole lot of the capacity in the long term, because as I said, the geological constraint, the structure is not likely to fully deploy.
Okay.
Sorry about that. And I'm not really expert on what
It's
to
okay,
do.
it's okay. What's the question?
Skip way on ahead. I mean, also appreciate volunteer run space. If you can bring your glasses upstairs, that also.
OK，我可以讲。好啊好啊。